In this webinar, obviously it's a video cast, we're going to be talking about the thing that we are most engaged with, and that is the patient experience. Everything that we do is about the patient experience. Everything. I mean, everything. From the very beginning of our engagement with a practice, all the way through everything that we do, it's all about the patient experience. And focusing on that one single topic so that we can make the most of that every single time. Now, it's very important that you understand what we're talking about when we say the patient experience. Well, the patient experience happens all the time, and it happens everywhere. What's important to you about this particular podcast is how much do you consider the patient experience? Versus everything else that happens in your practice, how much do you consider the patient experience? Now, at the end of this, I want you to truly understand what the patient experience is all about. I want you to really know what that means when somebody says, or when I say, or anybody says to you, the patient experience. What does that really mean? We've been doing this long enough to know that there is a very tangible outcome when we focus on the patient experience. I have watched practices morph over years of time, some of them over months of time, into highly, highly productive practices where everybody's just enjoying what they do a lot more, the doctor enjoys what they do a lot more, and the patients respond in very real, very tangible, very objective ways. We've seen it, we know it. We also know it from other businesses who have done the same thing. And if you think about a myriad of different things that you've been involved in, why do you continue to go to your favorite places? It's generally because of the experience that you have. Now, when we look at a myriad of organizations, there's one organization that continues to come back to us as being the number one place that we key on in the patient experience, and that is Disney. Nobody does it like they do. Now, we spend an awful lot of time there and effort to help people understand what it means to have an experience. We could do that for you too, but it's really something that you want to capture. You want to understand what that is all about. Now, in a later video, I'll go through a number of things with you along that front. On this one, though, we're going to talk about the patient experience, and I'm going to give you an idea of what that means for me. One of the reasons that this is such a vital importance to me is because of a couple of experiences I had as a child. One with a dentist when I was very young, and another one with a medical doctor when I was in high school. I'm just going to tell you about the one when I was in high school. One Sunday, I was in a play at church, and the role that I had in that play was kind of critical to the entire service, as I was supposed to give a sermon, so to speak, during the midst of that play that was about 7 or 8 minutes long. And I got up to do that. I didn't feel well at all. I mean, I felt horrible that day and have felt horrible in times previous to that, but this one day was particularly bad. It was on Easter Sunday, and this was a sunrise service, so it was very early in the morning. I did not feel well at all. Went to the doctor afterward. In fact, I was taken immediately to the hospital, to the emergency room, as soon as that service ended. Why? Because I got up and I was to do my part, which was to deliver this sermon, and I went to look at the notes and I couldn't see them. They were spinning. I mean, spinning in circles. And so as soon as that was over, I told my parents, and they obviously took me right directly to the hospital. In the hospital, a number of things happened. But at the end of a very trying and a very long day, I was diagnosed, actually a few days later, I think it was, with something called Meniere's disease. Now, that's not really important. What is important is I was sent to a specialist. And so Soon after that experience on that Easter Sunday, I was sent to this specialist, and this particular specialist, I believe, I don't even recall his specialty, but I believe it was ear, nose, throat. And we were told that he was the best. He was absolutely the best. And so went to this guy, and during the course of all of the different tests that he was running on me, things he was putting in my ear, questions that he was asking, the way that things were spinning, all of those different types of things, I'm certain were very, very helpful in narrowing to the diagnosis. But what I noticed most, and what I recall the most, even to this day, is the way that he treated his nurse. He berated her, yelled at her, put her down, called her names, kind of didn't ever physically touch her that I recall, but kind of brushed her aside. All of these things are the things that are the most vivid in my memory of that particular encounter, of that particular experience. That was my patient experience. Now, it had little to do with his ability to treat me. It had little to do with that doctor's knowledge and understanding of what was going on. It had everything to do with how the experience felt to me. And that's what's key. You see, patients, consumers, they have no way of judging clinical competency. Very few people that are ever going to go to the office that you work in are ever going to be able to judge the clinical competency of what's happening in that practice. What they can judge, however, is how they feel. They can judge the experience that they've had. And that is what the patient experience is all about. It's understanding that the patient experience is made up of so many different pieces that most people who work in that practice are not even aware of. Most of the things that happen there are not happening because we're planned out exactly what we wish to have of the patient experience. They're happening because of a particular clinical way of going about doing something. Those things are happening because we have this certain way that we want it to be done, not regarding the patient. Now, it's not to say that those things are disrespectful. It's not to say that they're bad. It's certainly better than the experience perhaps that I had, which hopefully those things don't happen anymore. But what I'm suggesting is that you can create in your practice an experience like none other. And I promise you that the things that people engage with practices with, the reason that they keep coming back to the practice, or the reason that they talk to other people, their friends and family, about your practice in a positive way, is because of that experience. That patient experience is the only reason that people are retained in a practice or refer others. So if you don't think it's really that important anyway, if you really don't feel that the patient experience is worth, even putting in the time and effort to this particular situation, then you have a practice that's burgeoning with patients and it really doesn't matter. If you want to truly affect what's happening inside of the practice, then focus on the patient experience. So here's your action item. Remember, we're looking at one thing. One thing that you want to do is, as a result of this particular podcast, consider all of the different things that happen in your practice from the very first moment that anyone, a consumer at this point, engages with your practice. What are all the things that happen? Boom, 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 boom. Take a moment and list those out, or talk to staff and do a staff meeting. Have everybody talk about what happens with patients from the moment they enter. And then pick one of those things and say, we want this, whatever it is, to be intentional. How are we going to do that? What are we going to do to cause this, again, whatever it is that is for you, to be intentional? And then go make that happen. Watch the results. And remember, it's all about the patient experience.